and welcome to the God is Groovy podcast. I'm your host, Gracie Brock, and today I'm with a sweet friend from church, and her name is Stephanie Frederick. Stephanie is someone that I've had the privilege of helping with kids camp at church. We have experienced that together, and we've just been able to share our testimonies with each other. And Stephanie has brought something really special to our church, First Baptist. And so not only do I want her to share her testimony with you all, but I also want her to share how and why the Lord laid this on her heart. And so she's going to share a little bit about that today. So if you just want to share your testimony first.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I don't remember a lot of my childhood. It's more of bits and pieces, but it's because, and I didn't know why until I started going through therapy, but my mom struggles with addiction, and she has for 20 something years now, but I have two brothers who are younger than me and they are on the spectrum. And so it became a thing of I helped raise them. And, my dad was there, in and out trying to figure out life. And, my dad was a pastor growing up. And so I would always go to church with him every single Sunday. And so it became a thing of, but I didn't truly understand church at that point.
Yeah.
And a lot of questions were there when I was a teenager because my mom's addiction started when I was 13. And even I didn't remember that part. I had family tell me later. Yeah. And so I was helping raise my brothers, and back then you didn't really know much about autism. Yeah. It was, we're going to put labels on it, we're going to give medication.
It's a lot more relevant now.
It is.
And I think it's a lot more recognized and also celebrated.
Yeah.
Which is really good.
Yeah. It's really awesome. But back then it was like, we didn't know. And, we didn't know what was happening. But it was like this automatic thing in me calming them down and all this other stuff, that God had put within me from the get-go. And, so going through all of that with my mom, a lot of questions surfaced of, why are we having to go through this? Why is my family having to go through this roller coaster ride? Because she would get better, but then we would relapse, and she would get better, and then it was a roller coaster ride. And and so questions popped up. Why was I going through this? Why is my family going through this? And why are my brothers going through this? Because we didn't know what was going on with them. Nobody knew. And and so then looking back and realizing, because there wasn't much known about autism, it's like I can't imagine what my parents must have felt, because I felt as 13 years old and the big sister overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And that empathy for my brothers. And so it became this thing of an struggle. And, we struggled financially. And, so it was a lot for 13 years old and in high school. And not even my closest friends know about my mom.
Really?
They didn't know until a few years ago when I told them.
Wow.
My mother's a functioning, you don't really know. And I started getting involved in children's ministry. And at the time, we just had my first two sons. And, so we were having a good time and we really enjoyed it. And then we had my son, David.
Yeah.
And once David was like 5 or a little younger, we began to recognize things in him that were different. The sensory and eating certain foods.
Yep.
And covering his ears whenever it get too loud, and just different things like that. And I started seeing things in him that I realized in my brothers. And even though I don't remember much of my childhood or theirs, it was like an automatic thing for me of like, I've seen this before.
Yeah, so you know what to do with it. I remember like I mentioned before, whenever me and you were counselors at kids camp for First Baptist a few summers ago, and me and you shared a room, and you were just kind of sharing all of these things with me. And you were talking about how autism was not known back then whenever you were helping your brothers. And hearing about how you then had a child who was also on the spectrum, I think maybe you didn't know back then why the Lord allowed your brothers to go through that, and why he allowed you to also go through it with them. But now maybe it was because the Lord knew that you were going to be blessed with David, and that you were going to be blessed with a child on the spectrum. And so the Lord was preparing you way back when, even whenever you were 13. And, you know, hearing that gives me chills, because I think that, you know, through the hard, God is there. And even when we go through hard circumstances, it might be because he's preparing us for something in the future. And I'm speaking to myself as well, because, you know, just struggles that I even go through, I'm talking to myself here too, knowing that God allows hard to happen so that he can prepare you for something else. And so I think that did you recognize your calling from an early age?
No.
You didn't?
Nope. It was just an automatic step for me.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Was it just natural for you?
It was just natural for me, because I was the only girl in my family.
Yeah.
And I have a massive family. Yeah. I was the only girl. But it was natural for me to just kind of step in and just be like, okay. I didn't know. I had no idea that not only would I become like a mother to my brothers, but I would also be helping my dad. You know, and when I was in college, I was helping my dad through his depression. And it was a constant, you know, it was just natural to me. Like it didn't really hit me that God was preparing me for something literally up until a couple of years ago. And it, you know, going through all this with my son, I began to see, like I said, my brothers.
Yeah. And
realizing, okay, something's not right. And, you know, the meltdowns David would have and everything. And then he started school, and it's been a roller coaster and mentally draining, but it's also been so amazing. And, you know, we've been fighting for this, you know, stuff with children's ministry. Yeah. And it's been a huge part of my life, and getting involved in children's ministry and the kids camps and everything, and seeing these kids and talking to these kids and realizing some of their backgrounds. And it's just like, that's when God decides to put a light bulb in your head. And because in talking to some of the kids, I've realized, wait a minute, they're going through a lot of the stuff I did growing up.
Speaking of that, I'm not going to mention this little girl's name, but you're going to know who I'm talking about. This little girl that we took care of at kids camp, and I just love her so much. She, you know, has blonde hair and glasses, and she's just so full of joy, but she is on the spectrum, and she is also adopted. And whenever her adopted mother shared with me her story, whenever I tell you, it is identical to mine. Like why she was adopted, the things that she went through is identical to mine. But whenever we were at kids camp, like I felt a special connection with her. Yeah. And I just loved her so much. Everybody loves this little girl. And this little girl also loves everyone. Yeah. But I felt such a special connection with this little girl, but I wasn't told her adoption story. Also didn't even realize that she was adopted until after kids camp, whenever her mom told me this is what happened to her. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. That's just crazy. We're not exactly alike. She has her differences and I have mine, but it's just wild how God brings people together with similar stories, but also, you know, those differences as well.
And it's wild because there was one conversation I had with another little girl at a D-Now event. And she had wanted me to pray for her. You know, so me and our children's director did. And out of nowhere, she opens up about the things she went through. And she's little and she's young. And she's younger than I was at that age. And it broke my heart for that circumstance. But it was also like, you know what? It was, again, that light bulb moment of I opened up to her because I needed her to know that there's people in her corner that, you know, I went through similar things. Yeah. And that she'll be okay. And it's one of those things where, you know, it was a God moment for her to know I'm going to make it. But it was also a God moment for me because it was like, this is why, again, answered questions years later that I had as a child. Why am I going through this? Why is this happening? Years later, I got my answer.
Yeah.
You know, because it was like, I need you to help these kids. I need you to be that light for them.
Yeah. I love how you said that it was an answered question for you. Because everybody always talks about answered prayers. God answered my prayer. I now know why I was praying for this. But hearing an answered question, sometimes it's not a prayer. Sometimes it's just a question. Sometimes it's a joyful question. Sometimes it's a mad question at God, like, why? But an answered question is so important too, because it just gives you that clarity and knowing that it's so evident that you are where you're supposed to be just through that answered question or that God wink or whatever it may be. And so I love that you brought that up.
It was, and even the past, because I've been in children's ministry now for, oh goodness, I don't even know.
A long time.
It's been a while. Because the kids that I started with are fixing to start high school. So it's been a while. But it's, again, it's the questions of, and I'm currently working on a book, and I just told you about that.
Yes.
But it's that thing of, as I'm writing this, it's healing for me because I'm starting to realize all of the things, all of the questions that I ever had as a girl, you know, as a teenager, for God. Like, why? And I stepped away from God for a while. Like, once I hit, after I graduated high school, even through high school, I stopped.
Yeah.
And I found my way back thanks to my husband. And because he literally was like, we're going to church. We're going.
Yeah. And now you can't get away.
And I can't get away now. Now it's, you know, we're going every Sunday. Like, it's everything.
Yeah.
But it's the connections you make at church too.
For sure.
And it's those connections with those kids, and they light up every time they see you.
I think that's the biggest blessing of church.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love the sermons and I love the things that I take home with me, like the lessons that I learn. But to me, community is the most important part of the church, which is why church is inside of a church building. Like, we are the church, people are the church. But what's the point in church if there's not community within the church? And it's important to be around like-minded believers that can encourage you and that you can like steward your faith together. And to me, First Baptist, the biggest blessing is just the community that we have.
Oh yeah. And it's a strong community of, you know, my greatest friends that I've met since I've moved here. Because when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. I'm from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't go to school with anybody here. I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, so through First Baptist, I have been able to have so many connections with friends. And, you know, they've become my best friends. I talk to them every single day.
Yeah.
And, you know, so but it's not just that. It's also, I now have bonus kids.
Yes.
You know, I have all these kids that are in high school. They're starting college, you know, or middle school. And it's like, I have all these bonus kids to be included, you know, because the other thing was we have 4 boys.
Yeah.
We wanted a girl. Didn't work out that way, but that's okay. You know, we have 4 boys, but it's like, hang on a minute. I have all these bonus girls at the church that I talk to off and on all the time just to check in with them.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, okay, another question of, you know, why couldn't we have a girl? You know, but in hints, obviously, well, I think, you know, I had the miscarriage of the twins.
Yes.
You know, and I have all faith that they were girls. We don't know, you know, but it's just one of those things. But I have those girls at church.
You do.
You know, I have those connections.
You do.
And, you know, so it's, again, you know, when we ask questions to God, it's not that we're questioning God. It's that we are just trying to want to know the answer.
Yeah, and he wants us to ask questions, and he wants us to talk to him. While we're talking about church, do you want to share your vision and how the Lord spoke to you in telling you to start Champions at First Baptist Church and what that's about?
So that was one of those moments where, okay, so before that, my son David, who's my son that's autistic, he hadn't been going to church for an entire year. My husband was staying home with him. And it was because he couldn't. You know, like it was just too overwhelming for him. It was sensory overload. Like we
I
at
totally
that
get
time
that.
we just didn't have like a special needs ministry at that time.
Uh-huh.
So he was home for an entire year. And, you know, so and it became a thing of my husband would stay home with him. And it's like we want to go to church as a family.
Yeah.
And so when we got our new children's director, I was pushing for it even before then. Like I was talking to the pastor, I was talking to anybody I could, trying to push for a special needs ministry because it wasn't just my son. There's so many in this community that have to go an hour away just to go to church.
Yeah.
And so it was this need for it. And so I really just started pushing and trying to figure it out. And then we got this new children's director, and we were at camp last year, kids camp.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt off to me because before I left for camp, my son was in tears because he wanted to go to camp and he couldn't. And it bothered me the whole week. And so I was like, you know, at camp, I just wasn't my normal self.
Yeah, and he didn't come to camp because he wasn't welcomed, but it was because it was an overwhelming atmosphere.
It would have been overwhelming, and he's on a set routine for bed.
Yeah.
That camp kind of overdoes that.
Yeah.
And so it would have just been a lot for him mentally.
Yeah.
He easily could have went, but I think it just would have been a lot for him mentally. And of course, he doesn't understand that.
Yeah, of course.
But, you know, while we were at camp, our children's director could easily tell that I wasn't myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of scattered and all over the place.
Yeah.
That last day of camp, we were all standing around in a prayer circle, and all the kids were praying and everything. I was kind of standing on the outside next to a couple of other people. And out of nowhere, I just got this overwhelming feeling, and literally it sounds wild, but I had my son David in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the other kids that couldn't come to camp that, you know, are special needs or autistic or whatever. And I had him on my mind, and I realized, I literally heard God in my head, I need you to do this for me. I need you to get this started.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the special needs ministry. And so literally I started in tears because I thought it meant I had to leave kids ministry. I thought it meant I had to leave my church kids behind. But also the overwhelmingness of happiness of, am I really qualified to do this? Because I just have a child who's special needs.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm qualified. And so I told our children's directors we were leaving why I was upset, because she thought I was just upset. And I told her, and she was like, okay, when we get back, we'll get it figured out. And sure enough, within a couple of months, we had our champion special needs ministry, and we had volunteers signing up, and we had a crew of people behind the scenes that have more experience than I do and have signed up to help it.
That's so amazing that God brings the people that you need, like, just in the right time.
Yeah. And here we are a year later, and we have the special needs ministry, which is our champions.
Mm-hmm.
But not just that, we have special needs kids that are in regular class on Sunday, and they are transition kids.
Yeah.
You know, at school. So therefore they sit in a regular class on Sundays, and, you know, they're able to do that, and they have a buddy. But if they need, we have a sensory room.
That's amazing.
Where they can just go for a few minutes and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have families we're talking to. I reach out to the families, our current families at church who have special needs kids, to just check on them and make sure that they're okay, because it's a lot. And here we are the year later, and we were able to take our transition special needs kids to kids camp this year. I was able to go and they did a 2-day camp, and they had a blast.
Yeah.
They were at the day camp, and now we're talking about doing an overnight camp for them next year.
That's amazing.
And what that looks like. And, you know.
And having a special needs night at VBS.
Yes. We did a special needs night at VBS this past week. It's the first one we've ever done.
And I saw a picture on Facebook last night of David playing on the basketball courts, and I was like, wow, that's so fun. So good for him. He
was struggling because he was tired.
Yeah.
Because this is the first time he normally goes to bed at 7. And so this was the first time he's staying up till like 8:30, 9 o'clock. So he was just really tired.
Yeah.
And he was having a hard time. And so I was like, all right, he likes playing basketball at school. So I was like, I know where we're going.
Yeah.
So we went outside and we went to the basketball court. And again, my church kids, they were out there.
Yeah.
And they immediately know David. They've known him his whole life. And so they started playing basketball with him. But it was one of those things of, God just reassuring, like, hey, you've got people behind you.
And there are people that are going to celebrate you and your differences.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that you've brought that opportunity to our church. And the Champions Ministry is not just for kids at First Baptist. It's for anybody that wants to come be a part of it.
We've had our special needs night that we had for VBS. We had kids, we had adults.
I love that so
we
much.
Had, and their guardians were there, and we had a really great time, and they loved it. And, we were able to just love on them and let them know that, hey, we see you where you're at, and you're doing a good job.
And that's important for them to know that.
Yeah. And it's so important to know that we have this massive community of people at, that not just see our special needs kids and adults, but they also see the guardians.
Yeah.
And their families, because it's a mental roller coaster for us, and so to have somebody just say, you know what, I see you. You don't need to worry about this. We've got your loved one. You just take a minute and do what you need to do and grow in your faith. And so it's been really amazing to truly just sit back and be like, okay, like this, I get it now.
You get it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what community within the church is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Just being able to take that load off someone's back, or being able to recognize someone's differences, or to recognize their struggles.
Yeah.
But also to celebrate them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's exactly what the Champions program is doing.
It is.
I just want to thank you, and thank you so much for bringing this opportunity to our church, but not just our church, but just the community of McMinnville, because like I said, anybody can be a part of that. And I just think that it's going to encourage a lot of people.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. And I thank you for wanting to bring this into our community, and it's one of those things where don't think that you have to be qualified.
Yeah.
If you want to start one at your church, don't think you have to be qualified.
That's so true, because people will bring
he'll bring people to you.
Yeah.
He most definitely will.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and just your heart behind all of it.
I appreciate it. Thank
you so much for coming on.
Oh, I love you.
I love you. Well, I guess that's all for today, but stay tuned for the next episode of God is Groovy.